A story went around a few years ago, of an overseas manager who could not understand the tolerance shown to what he saw as some hostile newspaper coverage of his club during one embarrassing episode. Why was there not a high-level intervention between club chairman and editor, he asked, to remove the problem? The problem being the reporter in question, and his removal was exactly what the manager had in mind. That was how it had worked back home, and he was intrigued to find that things were done differently in England. The disclosure of sensitive information might be regarded as a nuisance or an embarrassment, but when it was done accurately and fairly, it simply had to be taken on the chin. Indeed, now that Gareth Southgate has backed away from his original view, it seems more an issue of how the public would rather their team was covered. Southgate acknowledged on Saturday that the media covering England must be independent, and that he was wrong in his initial view that they had to decide whether they want to help the team or not. Although having raised that flag on Friday, there remain a notably authoritarian crowd still arguing that information must be suppressed for the greater good. There is no obligation to suit anyone's agenda when reporting information that is in the public sphere, and if you think that long lens cameras somehow unfair underhand journalism, try photographing a match or training session without one. The FA is a public body that accepts public money, and by inviting independent media to observe training or interview players, they are not doing anyone a favor to be later reciprocated. Some have criticized the media for the reporting of the incident. Credit Julian Simmons. In attendance at Friday's session were up to 30 photographers, only a fraction of which were English, who could and did take pictures of Holland's team sheet. Were they also obliged to suppress the team sheet in his hand? There can be no shared endeavor between team and media, whether that is famous former players giving an honest view on performances to newspapers reporting likely selections. That might make the media unpopular when public mood swings behind the teams, but it just happens to be the awkward truth. Unquestionably, there are occasions when the judgment of every newspaper slips and, for lots of reasons, reporting feels unfair, or is just plain wrong. But as long as it starts from the basic premise that it is an independent entity reporting what it knows and dispensing praise and criticism as fairly as it can, then the terms are clear to both sides. The England team has plenty of unconditional support, including their various online platforms, which, like all in-house football media, make no pretense at independence. And of course there are the England fans, although there is also no obligation on them to be supportive. If one was to draw the line at what could and could not be reported, then it would beg the question as to where that line fell and who would decide. The bigger stories often start with the smallest tremor, which leads to the bigger reverberations until eventually the larger truth appears. Exhibit A, Team Sky. The clinching argument for those who say the team sheet should not have been published appears to be that it has, to paraphrase, gone down badly, the translation for which might be that it has been criticized on Twitter. It might well be the case, but no newspaper or television or radio station can run scared of elements of public opinion. Under Hodgson the same thing happened. The notes of his assistant Ray Lewington were photographed ahead of Euro 2016, although the outcry was non-existent then, probably because of the relative unpopularity of team and manager. A different public mood, and a different reaction. Pick your England 11 to face Panama. It is worth pointing out that at Club and Country, the team lineup is often given to commentators early on match days, under a confidentiality agreement, to allow them to prepare. For in-house club-employed commentators whose job is ultimately not to act an independent journalist, the lead-in time may be even longer. It is very different to an old-fashioned scoop, where information is obtained from unofficial sources, and it is remarkable how some fail to grasp the difference. There will be some for whom an independent media are forever a thorn in the side, and for those who accept the principle, as Southgate does now, it must still feel at times like a conflict they could do without. Is just a consequence of an open approach, and coverage around other national teams can be just as spiky, including Argentina, where Jorge Sampaoli's notebook was photographed on Saturday, formation and all. The general media treatment of Southgate has rightly been patient, with him inheriting a team on its knees after 2 dreadful tournaments. As for the Hodgson regime, many supporters wanted change after the 2014 World Cup, but in the media there was an understanding of the problems, and the proposed solutions that convinced many, if not all, he was worth a 3rd tournament. Whether that was the right call is a debate for another day. Any successful movement, in politics, business or sport, has nothing to fear from robust and open reporting. It trusts in its own methods and principles, and does not require anyone else to break theirs. Speaking of which, the Panama co-chair Dario Gomez disclosed his starting 11 on Saturday. Confident chap. World Cup 2018, the best of the Telegraph's coverage. World Cup, newsletter promo. End of article.